I think we'll go ahead and get started. I really appreciate everyone who's joined us today. Hopefully you get quite a bit of value out of today's webinar. And obviously we want to bring as much information as we can when it comes to wellness and ergonomics in the hybrid workforce. And I think we've all dealt with it as a challenge. Cardinus has had the opportunity to deal with the London Olympics, really to kind of frame up where we are right now. But obviously they didn't deal with the stress factors that went along with the pandemic. And even in the beginning, right, finding toilet paper. So we've all had our struggles. We've all kind of grown to where we are now. But I really want to I want to thank everyone and appreciate your time today. So for the protocol, we're going to keep everyone on mute until the end, and then we'll go into a Q&A session. If you have questions, if you have concerns along the way that you want addressed, please use the chat feature. Today's agenda, we will talk about remote and hybrid work. You know, what have we learned? Where are we at today? What are some of the new things that are coming out? What's the future of work? All of this obviously is dynamic in its nature. So we're going to share with you via Cardinus and DORN and what we're hearing from our clients moving forward. We're then going to show you some virtual wellness solutions, the Self-Care Plus demo, take you through a case study and some self-care exercises, and we'll turn it into Q&A. So we have a really tight agenda. We hope that you find a lot of value in this. Today's panel is made up of Kevin Lombardo, Catherine Gurley, Bill Pace, and Kate DeMoss. So you can see that, you know, we really have come together to bring the world of experience of DORN and Cardinus. So Cardinus has been around for 26 years in the e-learning, risk management, risk mitigation business, as a lot of you know. DORN has been around for over 20 years as the nation's leading wellness-based pain management, injury prevention. And I think it's important for you to know that they do on-site therapy, they have education, they focus on ergonomics, but they focus on tech solutions. So what you're going to see today is a small sampling, but very, very focused on remote and hybrid working. And so, Kevin, you know, I really appreciate your time and taking time to, you know, demonstrate what you have to offer. And some of this even powered by Cardinus. But can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing with your clients when it comes to remote working, you know, really over the past, over a year now, almost 18 months of, you know, what are you seeing and what are your clients experiencing right now?
Sure. Bill, first of all, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. And thank you for having us participate in this. We're glad to be here, all three of us. And so we look forward to the event for today and sharing, you know, our experiences and obviously leveraging the Cardinus experience as well. So, you know, to answer your question, what we're seeing is, you know, when this all started last March, there was the mad rush to send everybody home. And so it was all about safety. It was all about employee safety and ensuring that people weren't getting sick, that they weren't getting catastrophic, they weren't winding up in the hospital. So, you know, that was kind of the phase one. Phase two was, okay, we think we understand what's happening. Now we have to kind of get back to work. And so when we talk about, you know, what we're seeing today is actually still a lot of what happened midsummer to fall of last year. When people went home, the numbers of home and remote workers went from somewhere pre-COVID, it was probably at 25 to 28% of the workforce was of non-manufacturing, blue collar workers were working remotely or from home. That shot up to 65 to 70%. We're still seeing that somewhere in the 40% range, and it's probably going to settle in the 30 to 35% range over the next few years. And so what we're seeing is that people have not really called everybody back. The second piece, for those who have said, hey, you know, our organization thrives on the collaboration that we have when people get back together in an office, in a space where they can work. I think what we're seeing now is a movement more towards that hybrid model that you introduced. I mean, we're in a hybrid model. We mostly work remotely. Periodically, we get together as a team in person to do strategy, to do some other type of work. But as I think about it, getting together becomes more intentional than it does become every day. I get up, I get in my car, I go to the office, I'm there for 8 hours or longer, and I come home. So that hybrid model is one thing that we're seeing. Now, the other thing that we saw, go back again to March, everything was we have to take care of our employees, and we sent people home. What most organizations weren't able to do quickly was bring the ergonomics that they mostly had in the office to the home office. And in the beginning, we had people working on couches, working from kitchen tables, dining room tables, very non-ergonomically efficient setups. And so what we saw was about a month after, because traditionally we're mostly on site, and we have now we have this hybrid model where we can do things virtually. But what we had is a number of customers calling us about a month after they sent everybody home, including us, saying, we're not sure we could bring it back on site. And we have all these people working from home. We have all these issues. What can you do about it? And so what you could see now is that from the statistics here, there's a large number of people still working from home and remote. Two, they're starting to see issues of musculoskeletal and MSDs, MSKs coming into play. Because even if organizations, the larger organizations who could support and afford, hey, I'm going to give Bill in the home office some ergonomic tools and some ergonomic equipment, most organizations still can't afford to do that. And so we're seeing a rise in MSKs and MSDs. Three, the piece that we've seen where MSKs and MSDs were always an issue, and we had a chart in a previous presentation that showed that it's been slowly creeping up, and the National Safety Council is projecting it might go up another 16% over the next year. What we're seeing from organizations is that coming out of the pandemic, one of their number one priorities is ergonomics, whether it's for the home worker, the remote worker, or back in the facility, be it office or in the plant. So we're seeing a little bit of a sea change, more of a hybrid model on the workforce, higher risk because of that model, and safety leaders and even wellness leaders who look at this from a wellness perspective are saying, we have more of a risk now that we need to address. So those are kind of some of the trends that we're seeing.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. What about the future? What are we going to see for the future?
Sure. I think we're going to, again, this is just my supposition based on what we've experienced over the last year and a half. But I think the hybrid model is probably a pretty important model. I think when I think about it, just talking to people as we're recruiting for people, they want to understand, does that hybrid model exist for me? And I think it's becoming a recruiting tool, and it's also becoming a retention tool. I think there's people have now started to make different decisions about work. And I think people are starting to look at, because we're reading all the articles on can't find workers. There's still more jobs than there are unemployed workers, but we can't find workers. Part of that is people are being more intentional themselves as to what they do. And so that hybrid model, or where I can work remotely, is an important component. So I think it's here to stay, not just because the slide says we could save $11,000 annually per employee that works remotely because of less office space, less rent, less equipment, all that good stuff. But the reality of it is it's really being driven from demand. The employees and the workers are demanding this type of environment. So we're seeing that. We did a survey back early this year of close to 1,000 HR and wellness directors. And the other piece we're seeing is more of a confluence between safety, the traditional safety, and the HR traditional wellness. They're starting to come together. So that's another trend, that they're starting to be more thought of, kind of that NIOSH total worker health, where you look at your employees more holistically. It's there. It was there obviously during the height of the pandemic last year, but it's staying now in the mindset of safety directors and VPs, wellness directors and VPs. And so they're starting to come together and think about the employees in a more holistic way. And how do we provide those tools that, yes, it's about safety, worker safety, lack of injuries, but how do we do it in a framework that's maybe more wellness driven than that pure safety / ergonomically driven? So that's another trend. And out of that survey also came the type of things that we're going to talk about in some of the virtual type solutions and technology-based solutions, some of the things Cardinus has been doing for many, many years. This is moving up the list of priorities for people. And I think one of the stats that we saw, obviously the larger, this shouldn't be surprising to anybody, the larger the company, more that these programs are already established. The smaller companies are trying to figure out, how do I get access to these type of programs more cost effectively? How do I bring solutions to my employees in a cost effective way that are this wellness driven, this employee retention or attraction tool, all those things that large companies use, or even some of the technology companies that play in this space that have always had more of a employee wellness mindset. Other companies are starting to think about it. So those are kind of the three things that I'm seeing in the future of work: hybrid model, more freedoms for the employees to choose how they work and where they work, and organizations kind of coming and looking at and saying, how do I bring this, especially those that aren't the larger companies with all the budgets in the world, how do I get access to these type of tools, and what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Can you take us into the next steps?
Sure. So I think the next steps are, this is part of that future. Telehealth, digital wellness programs. People want access where they're at. So whether I'm a remote worker, I work in an office, I may not take advantage of something until at night. You have to meet the employees where they're at. And I think that is a big sea change. The other piece, which kind of comes back to the point I made, is I think as people look at this, remote work has always been there. The lone worker, the utility workers, the small construction crews of 2, 3, 4 people, as well as there were always people working from home. Now there's this bigger piece of people that are working from home or working remotely. So wellness people have to start thinking about, okay, when I think about wellness programs, when I think about safety programs, the safety managers, we used to always think about the box that was the physical facility that people were always in, right? We think about, because they're all visible to me. I go to the office, the plant's right there. I can go out, I could see the safety hazards. The remote and the lone workers probably didn't have as much. Again, it's an access thing. They weren't really number 1 or 2 in the priorities. It was always about the shop and the office environment. So another trend that's happening is, okay, if I'm going to have a wellness program, I have to treat everybody the same. They all have to have access, whether I'm working remotely, whether I'm working in an office. So the telehealth, the digital wellness programs, meeting them where they're at, giving them apps that they can take advantage of and utilize. This increased access to chronic pain management and ergonomic resources. One of the things that came out of our survey that we did, somewhere around 32 to 34% of the organizations that, of that 1,000 organizations, and some were very large, some were small, indicated in the next year to 2 years, these type of programs, chronic pain management and ergonomic resources, were going to be very high on their priority list to figure out how to offer them to all their employees, both locally as well as remote. And so it was important. It was an important component for us to learn that there's a demand out there. Wellness directors, HR directors are looking at these type of tools, and that layers into the digital wellness programs, into the telehealth. The last piece that we're seeing is the personalization. How do I've got 100 employees. I'm in the tech industry. I got 100 programmers. Some are in the office, some come to the office once a week for our meetings, and most of them are remote. They're all over the country. Sometimes they're even beyond the borders. How do I take care of them? How do we personalize that? And I'm not talking about, kind of the industrial athlete type thing where it's in totally individualized, but then how do we give them access to a tool where it can be individualized without it costing a lot of money, so that Bill and Kevin and Kate and Catherine, they all get the same level of care, the same level of support. And if I have a neck issue and you have a lower back issue, you're going to be addressing your lower back. I'm going to be addressing the neck. So that personalization is going to be a major component. You know, I in a previous life, I was in the printing industry, and back in the day, it was you wanted jobs that ran thousands and thousands of pieces, because after a certain point, you were able to just keep the presses running, right? That was the big thing, keep your presses running. Well, digital print came about, individualized printing came about, so that when I get things in the mail, or now via email and sometimes in the mail, they're personalized to me. They know my shopping habits, because the grocery store, when they send us coupons now, they don't send us coupons for everything in their store or things that we never buy. They look at our shopping habits, and I'm getting coupons for the stuff that I buy. It's an individualized program for me and my family. That's coming over into the wellness aspect. Individualization, personalization on what Kevin needs, on what Bill needs, on what Kate needs, and what Catherine needs and Dee needs. So that, I think, is the next wave. So I think these are the next steps when people start looking at it and say, okay, that sounds like a lot of work. How are we going to, help people that, individualize? I got 300 employees. How do I individualize something like that? I got a department of one, maybe two people. How do we do that? So these are the next steps and solutions that are coming into play, because that's where everything, first of all, the rest of the economy was going there, like I said, with the personalized coupons and stuff like that, and the digital print back in the day. Wellness now is coming into that play, and safety is going to come into that play as well. Because think about safety just as an aspect as well as wellness. We have 3, sometimes 4 generations working together. We all learn differently. We all absorb differently. We all adapt differently. So you have to have some personalization in how you do things to reach the people, again, where they're at, and give them the avenues to allow them to take advantage of whatever the solution are that you're offering.
No, I like that, Kevin. I mean, more and more we're talking to HR directors, wellness directors, and talking to them as ergonomics gets folded in. I had a call just before this, and you talk about the idea of stipends or having ergonomic equipment sent out to houses, and the director of HR for this Silicon Valley organization that's global in nature was on the webinar on her kitchen counter because her husband was using the sit-stand desk and the other things for his call. So it's a shared space environment. And so, as you said, meet them where they are. I can't go by her office and say, how are you feeling today? And look for nonverbal clues or see that she's kind of craning her neck. We're missing out on those pieces. So,
Absolutely.
So what's the answer then?
Well, I appreciate that question. One of the things that we introduced, and a lot of this is in partnership with you all, a program that we call Self-Care Plus. A lot of these programs existed prior. You could see part of Self-Care Plus is Healthy Working, the Cardinus solution, for those ergonomic solutions, as well as training and educational vignettes. It has mobility and conditioning apps built into our programming that we're now building into the Cardinus programming. The fact that we have access to over 600 exercises that, again, we can personalize, or we can departmentalize, we can organizationalize, if that's a word. Instead of saying, here, Bill, here's 600 exercises, good luck, we could look at what your job is, what your role is, maybe on an individual basis, maybe on a group basis, and say, okay, for these type of jobs, for those that are experiencing these type of issues for neck, shoulder, lower back, whatever the extremity is, we could identify those exercises that make the most sense. And then we got to think about from a wellness as well as a safety, because this crosses over to safety as well. But when we think about it, think, okay, what's the purpose around this? Is it mobility? Is it strength? Does this person, are they an active person that they want an active exercise? Is this person more passive? They want more of a passive exercise that helps them get better range of motion. So it depends on what the outcomes desired are, there's 600 exercises to choose from. So between healthy working and some of these programmings, these can be embedded together to give access to the organization, to the individuals, just like healthy working has individualized my healthy working plan. You now can layer in X number of the 600 exercises to make that happen. Again, these can be done they don't have to be married together, but these two programs can be married together. The virtual ergonomics, I think that's been around for a little bit, but I think it's growing because now, yes, people are working from home, but how do we go live over Zoom, and how do we get our ergonomists to have access to looking at how the workstation is set up? If they come back out of healthy working and it says, I got 3 screens and I got this and I got that, an ergonomist can then help them maximize how their workstation is set up through a virtual live ergonomic session. And then the last piece, and there's actually 2 components to this last piece, the virtual self-care massage. So last year, and to be transparent, this was out of necessity, a client calling us up after sending us off-site saying, okay, I got all these people working from home. 1, you can't go to all their houses. 2, we're not letting them in the building, but now they all have pain and discomfort. How can you help them? So we created the live virtual self-care massage where they get 3 to 4 30-minute sessions where we're doing a mini ergo assessment, but we're focused on that area of concern. And what we're doing is we're teaching them the tools that we do on site for a lot of organizations. We're teaching people how to do that themselves, and then how to carry that forward beyond the training so that anytime they have that neck issue or that shoulder issue, they're getting access. They've been trained on how to do it with a live person. So we have that. Then the last component of that, which is a secondary component of the virtual self-care massage, we actually created that same programming on demand, and we've introduced it to through your organization to a lot of folks, where people can get an on-demand ability to download content as well as mini videos on how to do what they were trained to do in the live session. And in a lot of cases, if an organization doesn't have the ability to invest in live sessions for everybody, the on-demand version allows people to have access. Again, my point is meeting them where they're at, because some people will do it at work, some people can do it at home, and it take them with them. They could be at their kids' ball game sitting in the stands. When you sit in the stands that doesn't have a back, after 3 hours of watching a baseball game, you're starting to hurt. You could do it right there. So these tools are there for people to take access, and you can see, some of the results that come out of this. And these are some of our, results that we've seen with folks. Reduce discomfort by 75%. That's not 75% of the people say reduce comfort. That's a 75% pain level reduction. That's kind of more from the live sessions. But again, giving them the backup of the on-demand version as well. Improve sleep patterns. 50% of the people saying that. 50% of the people saying reduce stress levels. You could see the results that come of that. So, what comes out of this program is an on-demand, the light version. So we have the live version where people can get 3 to 4 sessions, 30-minute sessions, with a trained licensed professional via a telehealth software that is OSHA compliant. I'm sorry, not OSHA compliant, HIPAA compliant, where they can get those live sessions. Then they have the on-demand version where they just get access to content and videos on connect employees with the videos, how to do this, how to take care of yourself. It teaches them how to arrange their workstation a little bit better. And you can see it does the thing. With your permission, I'd like to actually turn it over to Catherine to maybe do a demo of the light version, if that works for you, Bill.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Catherine, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sounds good. Perfect. Let me share my screen really fast. So obviously, what really this program is about is 3 things. It's the ease of use for people in remote work situations, it's the ability to use the program at any one given day, throughout the day, depending on their schedule. And it's also really managing the strains that people see while they're sitting at a desk for sometimes 8, 10, even 12 hours a day, depending on their career. So with Self-Care Plus, let's see, it's extremely easy to use for people in the workforce. It's logging in, it's creating that profile for yourself, just using your own work information. And then it is really about finding those areas of concern that you're seeing. And obviously with people sitting at a desk, it's really all about upper body. You can find those areas of concern like your hands, your wrists, your shoulders, your neck, your upper back, your lower back, and really target those areas of concern. So with this program, you can go through and find where you're having those work-related pains. And every single one actually has videos to walk you through very individualized of how to work out those strains. So you can do something like for your hands where you're typing all of the time, and if you don't stop and take some of those exercises and take some of those techniques into consideration, you could eventually truly have pains on a daily basis. For this right here, not sure if it'll play sound. No, it's just the actual movement, but really showing those exact how to even apply pressure, how to work those tendons in your hands. And there are several techniques throughout this program for every single area of concern. And then it's about reinforcing those techniques. You can learn something very quickly in a 5-minute period, but then it's all about retention. And it points you through how to do those techniques and how to incorporate them into your daily routine. And we also have the ability to print them out. So if you don't want to access the program every single day, we do have those printable instructions for you. So you can go through the program and actually see all of those techniques. Just want to point this one out because this one actually works really, really well on me. So yeah, I will turn that back over to Kevin.
Thanks, Catherine. Really appreciate that. I need to reshare my screen real quick. Oh, Dee, if you can. Okay, I think I can do that now. Great, thanks, Catherine. So hopefully you got just a good quick snapshot of what this program can do for you, how you can take it with you, as Catherine said, whether it's downloading the exercises or accessing it on your mobile device, wherever you're at. Like I said, if you're at your kid's ball game and you're sitting in the stands, what you just saw there is not a lot of work and actually won't look too funny when you're doing it. People get up and stretch all the time when they're at a ball game and do other things. This has just become the norm. So one of the things I'd like to do is just, quickly talk about a client that we had. This was a client that we were on site some 70 to 80 hours a week pre-COVID. And, when COVID happened last March, they said, go home. We need to, figure out what's going on in our world. Fortunately, we're back on site and doing well. But one of the things they did is they came to us about a month later. This is the one I referred to before. And they said, we've got some issues. We got all these people home. They don't have ergonomic setups. And they're just telling us, they're they're having a lot of issues. And so what can you guys do? So we, kind of sat around and said, we can develop something where we can train them a little bit like you saw with what Catherine does, but we actually are doing this more of a live session. These are the 3 to 4 live 30-minute sessions where we're teaching them in more in depth than what the light version program does. What the light version program does is reinforce what you learn in a live, or for those who don't have really deep-seated pain and discomfort, if they just have some nagging pain and discomfort, the light version that Catherine showed is perfect. But we created this live version, and these are some of the data points, and we would expect these data points to carry over to people who take advantage of the on-demand version. 77% pain level reduction. And I'll be honest, Bill, when we started this, we thought we'd get 40, 50% pain level reduction. Excuse me. What we saw was 77. When we're on site, we get 85, 90%. People doing this themselves, teaching them how to do this, they got 77%. 92% said they had an improved morale. Would have seen a healthcare professional, 33%, because that pain and discomfort was so disabling that people would have gone to see a healthcare professional. Think about, from a wellness perspective, the reduced healthcare benefits. When you think about musculoskeletal issues and some other, especially those issues, what we see, we have a client, they have 10,000 employees in North America. They average about $3 to $4 million a year in MSD related issues on the worker comp side. Well, when we started with them 4 years ago, we asked them to go look at the healthcare side, the non-OCMED, the wellness side. And what they came back was, for those 3 or 4 million on the worker comp side, there was $22 million of MSKs, MSDs in the healthcare non-OCMED side. I hurt my back shoveling snow. I moved my kid into college this past weekend. I threw out, a shoulder. Whatever it is, it's a significant issue on people. And so this relates when you're giving people tools to take care of themselves. And when you empower people, people take advantage of it. And you can see 77% of the people say reduce stress. Well, the chart on the right shows is that, we had one person, a half-hour session the first week. After 10 weeks, we were over 20 hours a week. We got as high as like 35 to 40 hours a week. Now that we're back on site, we're still averaging, 14 to 20 hours a week, depending on the site and the issues that the people had. So these type of programs work. Obviously, a live, getting 3 to 4 30-minute sessions gives you a lot more impactful solution. But on the on-demand version now, what we're actually doing is we're sending along the on-demand version for those that we teach live. Again, there's going to be a lot of organizations say, hey, I got 1,000 employees. Maybe I can't invest with everybody having live versions. I think that's where what Catherine just went through is a great, great tool. So what I want to do now, again, Bill, if this makes sense, we have Kate DeMoss here, our clinical lead, that can actually demonstrate live some of the things that they can see in the live version and a little bit of what they might get in a live version, if that works.
Yeah, sounds great. Please.
Great. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. And I'll leave it to you to turn it over to Kate, and I'll go back on mute.
Hi, everyone. So I've been having a lot of fun working with this program and helping people teach themselves how to massage themselves. And it's a life skill that will have the rest of their lives. So what I'm going to do today is I'm picking 2 areas that are very, very common in office workers that are injured. And I'm going to show you how I teach this self-massage. I'm going to move my camera so you can see what I'm actually doing. You don't need to see my face for this. I want to show you the actual technique. All right, so. All right, so one of the areas is forearm and to hand wrist. So If you have an arm in your chair, we'll use that. If you do not have a chair with arms, you put a towel on the edge of your desk, turn sideways, put your arm, so your elbows in and your hands hanging off the side. I'm going to use my chair arm for this. So you're going to put lotion on the arm. And I guess that most of you don't know that you have an almost perfect massage tool in your house. A stick deodorant container has a nice ergonomic grip. It has two nice edges for doing the massage work for arms, necks. And if you wanted to use it on your legs and some of the bigger muscles, you have this big broad edge that helps. And you can get a lot of reach using this and a lot more pressure than you can just trying to use your fingers reaching spots. So I'm going to work this area from the elbow crease down to these bones right at my wrist. I do not go over the bones, that just hurts. So we're going to work on these muscles. These muscles actually go down and do that motion. So typing, mousing, etc., are all affected by these muscles. I'm going to show you how to work. I'm going to put that area on a stretch so my fingers are toward the ground, and using my tool and pushing with my arm, I'm going to come in with pressure inward toward the middle of the arm and then down. And I'm very, very slowly, with a nice, firm, slightly uncomfortable pressure, going to go down my arm. And one pass should take anywhere from an arm my size, probably 5 to 10 seconds. I'm going to repeat this by moving over maybe quarter inch, half an inch, doing it again, doing it again, and doing it again. 4 passes. I then fine tune it by putting my hand underneath and using a bent thumb. Never use your thumb like this, that kills your joints. Use a bent thumb. You can fine tune this area here. And if you find a little tight spot, a little Rice Krispie, stop, hold the pressure, move your hand up and down. And within 3 or 4 movements, that usually you feel that dissolve and go away. Pick your thumb up, move over about a thumb width, and repeat. And fine tune that whole area. And then you can reinforce it by doing a technique like this. So that is a very quick description of how you would self-massage your forearm. Another area that is very commonly people want to know how to massage is this upper back area here on the corner. There's a muscle that runs from basically this part of your spine to the corner of your shoulder blade and attaches in here. It's designed to actually lift the shoulder blade, and it's not designed to hold your head in front of the body all day, which is what people end up doing with it. So it fatigues. And so what people would do would be they would put lotion on their neck. I'm just going to show one side. I always have people do both sides when they're working their neck and their chest. I am going to hold my tool like this, and I am going to describe one. You're going to go from this point to around this shoulder blade here. I'm going to start at the base of the skull and work my way here. At the same time, I'm going to have that muscle here on a stretch. And I put it on a stretch by turning to the opposite side, dropping my nose toward the ground, and then tilting my ear until all of a sudden I feel a really good stretch in this area. So maintaining the stretch position, I come here and I very, very slowly, using one of the point that's nearest to the head, I very slowly trace that muscle down to the edge of the shoulder blade. I pick my tool up, move over it just a touch, and repeat again, and go to the front edge of that muscle and repeat again. And I can reinforce that technique by basically doing the same stretch I was doing with a little bit of pressure. So that was a quick demonstration of two of the techniques. Of course, I have techniques for muscles on the side of the technique, neck, back of the neck, hand, arm, back, etc. All right.
Hey, Kate, that was great. I have one question for you. When if you turn and do the neck thing you just did again, when you started, you pointed to the shoulder and said, if you had pain in your shoulder, go to the neck. Maybe explain the connectivity and why in the work that we do, it's not always where the pain is felt, but it's we go somewhere else.
Okay. I understand, for example, in shoulder movement, there's 22 muscles involved in just doing something like this. So most people do not realize that there are muscles on the backside that come and attach to the front here. So, and the same applies in here. We have muscles that can form tissue that can form trigger points. People, I'm sure, have heard of trigger points by now, which are defined as spots that radiate pain, numbness, or tingling to other parts of the body. For example, there are two trigger points in this area here that radiate and can cause headaches behind an eye. So you have those all over the body. So also, the way the connective tissue is put together, you have your skeleton, the bones, you have the muscles that attach to the bones with tendon attachments. The bones are held together with ligaments. So I can move because there's a muscle that crosses a joint, and when the muscle shortens, it tightens and moves my arm. As all of this happens, you also have layers of connective tissue. So for example, most people sitting at a desk have a tendency with improper body mechanics, and I'm going to slump. You see people working like this a lot, okay? You can see how the head and neck are in front of the body, okay? Well, they feel the pain here and across and through here. However, if I don't teach them how to open this chest up, the connective tissue has deformed to where they can work this all they want, but they're going to end up back like this because that connective tissue is pulling them back into that bad posture again. So part of what we do in some of these self-massage techniques is we show them how to open this area up, which is not just the muscles, but the connective tissue. So now it's easy to set like this, which puts the head on top of the shoulders without putting stress on this area.
Sounds great. We've actually entered the Q&A portion already, Kate, and we have a question for you. Are you concerned at all, especially even in the light version where people don't have the access live to you or one of our other professionals, that people potentially could do those exercises and those techniques wrong and cause further harm than not? And what would you say to folks that might have that concern?
Okay, one, it is difficult for most people to do extremely deep tissue work on themselves. I am a deep tissue therapist. I've been one for years. I can really get in there, controlled on people, and I still will have somebody else work on my forearms if I really want to get some super deep work done on my arms, because I cannot relax into it and push that hard at the same time. So part of it is people will not work on themselves usually hard enough to hurt themselves. In live sessions, I definitely emphasize this is deep tissue work I'm teaching you. This can make you slightly sore for a day or two. So I don't want you to go too hard today. See how you feel tomorrow. And we go from that. So especially in the live sessions, I'm always giving them feedback, telling them what they should expect, how hard to go, how hard not to go.
So with the on-demand sessions, that's more of we're giving people the ability to have some temporary relief and ability to get through the day in the next few days, things of that nature. We're not, those techniques that you're talking about, we're not teaching those in the on-demand portions.
I didn't quite understand what you were asking.
So with the live sessions, you tell them, you know, we're going deep, we're going to teach you that. With the on-demand version, the light version, we're giving them some tools that will give them some relief, but they're not going deep enough to cause any harm.
And the on-demand and the written descriptions and the verbal, I'm also reinforcing. It should be an uncomfortable but not extremely painful level. And if they're sore the next day, to back off.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Bill, do we have any other questions from the audience? Thank you, Kate.
Dee has a question. What are some of the solutions to manage Zoom fatigue, Kevin?
Yeah, Zoom fatigue, I think we're all experiencing it, right? We're experiencing it right now as well, probably in some respects. But I think, you know, when you think about it, there's some that are out there, companies have said, hey, we're not going to have Zoom day on Fridays, to allow people a day away from having to have these type of meetings every day and multiple times a day. And it's because as we've gone more and more remote, the fact is we've become more and more screen dependent. And so we have to break away from that. So that's number one. Two, do some of these exercises, or even get up and walk around the block with your dog or your spouse or your kids. Get active, do different things to get away from the screen. When you set your calendar for the day, manage your meetings, especially in this remote environment, so that you're not in meetings on Zoom for 8 hours or 6 hours. You know, it's one thing to have a live meeting, even though that was not good to be sitting in a conference room for 8 hours and 12 different meetings, right? Let's do the same thing here. Let's make sure you schedule yourself space where you're not on Zoom. You're actually either doing something where if it's work related, you could do something that maybe isn't even on the computer, where you're giving some thought. And I just saw a very neat tool the other day on Facebook, and I haven't tried it, so I'm not going to give the name of it, but it's one of these where you can write your notes and it translates into text. And that's another way to get your eyes off the screen, even if it's not Zoom, right? It's just having that fatigue. So I think it's really creating an environment and scheduling yourself in a way that you are having those breaks, because our surveys have noticed that people are online about an hour and a half to 2 hours more a day post-pandemic than they were pre-pandemic. And we got to get people away from that. If this is our environment, the hybrid model, there's ways around that.
I'm on mute. Look at that.
There you go.
Kevin, you're going to be at ASSP. Can people
Yes.
come by your booth, and what would they experience if they're going to be in Austin next week at ASSP?
Yeah, I think, and Yulia will correct me if I'm wrong through text, but I think we're at booth 429. We will have one of our pain-free specialists there who will do demos for those who are interested in having a live demo of what we do on site. It'll also give you an experience of what somebody like Kate would teach you virtually. And again, we welcome anybody who wants a demo of what we do live to go through Bill Cardinus, get a hold of us. If you want demos of the on-demand, get a hold of Bill. We'll figure all that out, but they'll get access. And just so everybody knows, we're following all the safety protocols. We change gloves in between each person that we might work on. We wipe down all the chairs that we're going to be working on. And our person will obviously be wearing a mask, and she happens to be, everybody who's going, I think, is vaccinated. So anybody who's coming to Austin next week, please stop by booth 429 to get a demo or talk about the light version, the live version, or the on-site safety protocols that we have.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin, we have a couple more questions. Have you tried providing postural re-education exercises on demand?
So I'm going to turn that question over to Kate, because she's the clinical lead. So to kind of explain for the masses what that means, Kate, and then what that might look like if we were able to do that in a live or on-demand version.
Okay. So I'm going to say there's two versions. There's the seated version and the standing version. So part of what I do in my live virtual sessions is I do some postural re-education the first 5 or 10 minutes, because if you do not correct what is causing very discomfort, it's going to keep showing up. So what it can look like is, again, I'm going to move my camera a little bit here and erase some. I am going to teach people chair-wise how to set, instead of on their tailbone, which makes it really easy to slump into a C shape, have them stick their butt back in the chair so they're setting straight on the pelvis, which automatically puts the body in a straighter position and makes it much more difficult to slump. And I go from there about how to move from that posture, etc. Standing, again, for office people, we have several body mechanics moves that we do. One is fantastic for this upper body. Okay, feet under your hips, thumbs rotated out. We're not stretching, we're just rotated. I'm going to tuck my chin straight back, and I'm going to pinch my shoulder blades together really hard, like I'm squeezing a pencil between them for 10 seconds. And then I relax and repeat 2 more times. And that starts to help strengthen these muscles in the upper back that need more strengthening, that are usually underutilized when people are setting them properly. And it helps open the chest up. Everybody loves that one.
That's great, Kate. And Bill, what we actually do, that's part of our program we call instinctive movement systems. We teach a lot of that live in plants. We kind of call it pre-shift conditioning and mobility. We're teaching people how to be ready for whatever their movements are in the day. But from the postural re-education, absolutely, that can be done in the live versions. And, we can, as we're growing this light version, the on-demand version, we can start adding in some of those type of additional exercises into that programming, so people potentially could get access. There is another question. I think I see that, how do you convince leadership? I know we're almost out of time here, but to invest in these wellness programs. The long and short of it is you got to know your audience. If your leadership is very ROI driven, it's ROI. That's the conversation you want to have. And I know with Cardinus programs, Healthy Working, there's ROI calculations. With all of these type of programs, there's ROI calculations that we can help you with to try to show that in the light. In some organizations, ROI is still important, but it isn't the number one discussion. It's about morale, retention, all those type of things. And so whatever your audience needs are, we have the data around these type of programs that can help you show what that data is. When we see 50% reduced absenteeism, 44% pain medication reduction. Like I said, 92% increased morale, those type of things. The ROI is there, as well as all those other softer things. It depends on your leadership team. And Dee, I just want to put up one more slide. So if you could make me presenter again, that would be great. There's a question I do want to answer as I'm getting that back up. Is it safe for someone who's or not knowledgeable on ergonomics to take medicine like muscle pain relievers? We are not medical providers. We don't give any medical advice, so I'm not going to be able to answer that. And we don't want to answer that in this type of environment anyways. So I'm going to share one more screen with you, Bill, so that, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, because I think we got through a lot of the questions. If there are other questions, feel free to email info@Cardinus. If there's something that we're going to be answering, Bill will get those off to us. If you want a live demo, get a hold of Bill. He will pass that on to us. If you want a demo of the light version, get a hold of Bill. You'll get access. And Bill, I'll turn it back over to you. And I want to thank you for hosting myself, Kate, and Catherine today. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in today.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you. And just so everyone's aware, this was recorded. We will make sure we correspond with everybody after this call. If you do have questions and concerns, as Kevin said, we're always on the end of an email or a call. Kate, Catherine, I really appreciate the information that you shared. Really appreciate your time. And for everyone who's attended, thank you for taking time out to listen and also to participate, to push out your questions so we could address those. So at this point, we're going to wrap it up. And again, we just want to thank everyone and hope that you have a blessed and a well day today.